Carolyn, if our first honeymoon was like this one, we never would have had a second honeymoon.
That's right, my dear listeners. Today we're diving into the romantic, the juicy, and frankly more often than not, the scandalous love life of Michael Landon.
I want you more than anything else in the world.
America's beloved Pa Charles Ingalls, who, despite his angelic image on the small screen, had a few real-life secrets tucked under that famous mop of curly hair. And by secrets, yeah, I mean a full-blown affair that ended a nearly 2-decade-long marriage. So yeah, sit tight, as we remember the things others might have forgotten all about.
Thanks.
Or maybe wish they could have forgotten about. Hollywood can be certainly tough on a marriage, or so I've heard at least. I've only been once, and no, I didn't get married. But maybe there is a lesson here to learn for all of us, and maybe even some redemption for this inspiring, yet so very, very flawed hero to so many of us. So sit back, relax, take your wedding ring off. No, you can leave your wedding ring on as we go find out a little more about Michael Landon. Part 1, Michael Landon, the Prairie's Golden Boy.
Edwards, when are you going to learn you are family, huh? Come on.
Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's set the scene, folks. Michael Landon, born Eugene Maurice Orowitz in 1936, he fought an uphill battle to become the poster child for the American dream. And I know, he doesn't really strike me as a Eugene either. Apparently he didn't think so either, cause he decided to go pro and change his name. He got his name from one of the most sacred, enduring, and super heavy sources of inspiration out there, a phone book. Now, Michael Landon went from being a track and field star with Olympic aspirations and a killer javelin arm to, well, Hollywood royalty. The guy just seemed destined for great things from a very early age. I mean, yeah, when I was in high school, sure, I wasn't anywhere near the Olympics with anything, but I did beat my friend in one-on-one basketball once for his Stretch Armstrong doll, so yeah, there's that. But America fell in love with Michael Landon as Little Joe Cartwright on Bonanza. But I do think his role as Charles Pa Ingalls on Little House on the Prairie, it cemented his wholesome persona in the minds of millions of Americans. But was that wholesome persona a lie? See, the thing is, this was a man who could do it all. He could act, he could write, direct, produce, hell, he could even sing.
When I get to that Swanee shore.
Not to mention, he could build a cabin with his bare hands without breaking a sweat. I heard he didn't smell bad either. Talk about talent. I'm sure we all smell though, in our own funky, unique way. But did Michael Landon's really not stink? I mean, what happened to his wife of 19 years? That kinda stinks. It's also important to know, it wasn't just his on-screen persona that made Landon a star. Oh no, folks. Michael Landon had that all-American charm that made him a darling of the tabloids and a hero to families across the country. He was the guy everyone wanted as their TV dad. Hell, their real dad too. The epitome of kindness, strength, and moral integrity. Or so it seemed, because the truth was actually way messier than the fiction. Part 2, Behind the Scenes, All That Glitters Isn't Gold. As we all know, life on the prairie wasn't always sunshine and rainbows, and neither was life behind the cameras of Little House. Despite the show's wholesome image, there was a fair share of drama simmering under the surface, and at most times, the center of all of that was Michael Landon. But what ended his second marriage that lasted almost 20 years? How did we get to this point? Were there signs in front of us the entire time? Was Landon even capable of a lasting relationship that fans could admire? Let's turn back the clock just a bit and really meet the key players in this sordid love story. Circling back just a bit, we'll remember that before Michael Landon was the heartthrob of primetime TV, he was just a young kid named Eugene, trying to find his place in the world. And like many a teenage boy, he found himself swept up in the whirlwind of first love.
All right, if that's all I can get, I'll keep it a secret.
Ah, young love. Ain't it something? Takes me back to my own school days. Why, I remember one particular school dance where I spent more time trying to work up the nerve to ask someone to dance than actually dancing. But that's a story for another day, and I'll admit it, it was every school dance. Now back to Michael. Sorry, Eugene at this point. It was the 1950s, and our all-American hero was entering adulthood after a really harrowing childhood. where Michael basically had to grow from a reclusive kid to strong and commanding. But long story short, his mother basically made his life a living hell. He lived in constant fear. So enter Michael, growing up now and getting his first look at first love with Dodie Levy-Frazier. Now, Dodie wasn't just another pretty face. She was a young woman with her own share of life experiences, having already been married once and now with a young son named Mark. Now, if this were a Hollywood script, this would be the part where the music would swell, the whole scene slows down and narrows to just the two of them, our lovebirds locking eyes. He sees her, she sees him, and in that moment, the entire world fades away. But, hey, real life, you know? Doesn't always follow the script. Drats. Now, Eugene, just barely a young adult at the time, was still pretty far away from that confident, square-jawed Charles Ingalls that we would all later love. But despite all that inner baggage, he let himself get totally captivated by Dodie with gusto. Now, Dodie was a few years older, mature beyond her years, and had a nurturing side that appealed to Eugene's sensitive nature. And knowing what we do about his parents and their disconnect, this was probably a huge breath of fresh air for our future TV star. Michael and Dodie began to date, and it wasn't long before their relationship grew very serious. By 1956, at the tender age of 20, Eugene, now officially Michael Landon, married Dodie, stepping into the role of husband and father all at once. Now folks, let's pause just for a moment to appreciate this. Young Michael Landon, he didn't just fall in love. He dove headfirst. He took on responsibilities that would make most young men run for the hills. Imagine being 20 years old and suddenly finding yourself not just a newlywed, but also the stepfather to a little boy. Talk about skipping a few steps. Makes my nerves at that school dance seem pretty small in comparison, huh? Nope, you're wrong. The dance is high stakes. But Michael was nothing if not committed. He adopted Dodie's son Mark, gave the boy his last name, embracing fatherhood with the same dedication he would later bring to his on-screen roles. According to Cheryl Landon Wilson's book, I Promised My Dad, Michael took his role as a father very seriously, determined to provide the stability and love that had been woefully absent from his own. So, where did it go wrong? Well, for a time, the young family was happy, building a life together in the bright sun and big dreams of Los Angeles. But as Michael's career began to take off, first with small roles and then with his breakthrough as Little Joe on Bonanza, the pressures of Hollywood began to strain the marriage. The long hours on set, the temptations of fame, and the growing demands of his career started to pull Michael away from the quiet, domestic life he had with Dodie. And by the early 1960s, the cracks in their marriage were starting to show. Dodie, who had always been present and faithful, loving, devoted since the very beginning, found herself tossed to the sidelines as Michael's stardom shined brighter and brighter. The couple eventually divorced in 1962 after 6 years of marriage. It was a difficult and painful decision, but one that seemed almost inevitable given the drastic changes in Michael's life and career, and maybe even his very person. You know, it's funny how life can change so quickly. One moment you're a shy kid, nervously eyeing your first big crush, and the next, you're a rising star, navigating the complexities of love, marriage, and fatherhood. Michael Landon's first marriage was definitely a formative experience, one that shaped his views on relationships and family for the rest of his life. And while it didn't last forever, it was an important chapter in the story of the man who would go on to become one of television's most beloved figures. And it gives us a fuller picture of the complex man we idolized from the sidelines. So the next time you find yourself reminiscing about a school dance or a first love, remember that even the biggest stars started somewhere, with the same hopes, fears, and dreams as the rest of us. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find a little comfort in knowing that we're all just dancing our way through life, trying to figure out the proper moves in our head as sweat begins to drip. This also opened the door for Landon's second marriage, this time to Marjorie Lynn Noe, who, interestingly, he married a year after splitting with Dodie. Michael, I'm seeing a pattern here. By the late 1970s, Landon had become the driving force behind Little House on the Prairie. He was the star, the executive producer, and even directed a slew of episodes. In other words, what Landon said went. But power can be a tricky thing, and as Landon's influence on the show grew, so did the complications in his personal life. Could it be stress from his workload? Now, enter stage left Cindy Clerico, a young and vibrant makeup artist who had joined the crew of Little House when she was just 19. Now folks, here's where things start to get interesting. Michael, who was 20 years her senior, started spending a little too much time in the makeup chair. And no, it wasn't because he needed extra powder for those close-up shots. And as a reminder, he was, in fact, still married to his second wife, Marjorie Lynn No. Yikes. He's not the first, and he won't be the last, but the decadence of Hollywood has tempted many a movie star. We also see a pattern developing here, as Landon met Ms. Marjorie on the set of Bonanza. She was working as an extra chatting away on set, then looked across the room and boom. That fateful eye contact moment with a little-known star, Little Joe. You know we love that kind of stuff. Cheryl's book paints an even more fairy tale picture saying, quote, "According to everything I've ever been told by both my parents, it was love at first sight. Their eyes met, and as Dad explained, he knew in that instant that he had to have her, that this woman had to be his mate. Ooh boy, it's getting pretty steamy in here, huh? But then comes the deja vu, all over again." Part 3, The Affair, When the Prairie Caught Fire. By 1980, rumors of an affair between Landon and Clerico were swirling around the set. According to Cheryl Landon Wilson, Michael's daughter from his first marriage, and the author of I Promised My Dad, the affair was pretty much an open secret all among the cast and crew. People had noticed the long glances, the extra time spent together, and let's not forget the luxury RV that Landon bought, which just so happened to provide a private space away from prying eyes. Well, it's a good place for doing makeup and hair, probably, right? Well, yeah, I mean it is, but also other things. As Landon's relationship with Clerico deepened, his marriage to Marjorie No started to unravel. The couple, who had been married for nearly 19 years and had 4 children together, couldn't withstand this strain. But what about the other dancer in this salacious tango of an affair? Let's turn our spotlight to Cindy Clerico, the woman who, quite literally, changed the course of Michael Landon's life. Born in 1957, Cindy was a fresh-faced 19-year-old when she landed a gig as a makeup artist on the set of Little House on the Prairie. And let me tell you, she wasn't just any makeup artist. She was the kind who could make even the dustiest prairie dweller look glamorous. But little did she know that her work on that musty set would lead to a whirlwind romance that would captivate the tabloids and alter the lives of, well, everyone involved. Cindy's youthful beauty and vivacious personality quickly caught the eye of Michael, who was in his mid-40s at that time. And oh boy did sparks fly. But it wasn't just her looks that attracted Landon. Cindy was intelligent, very warm, and had a spark that lit up a room. Cindy had a natural charm that made her stand out, even in a Hollywood crowd. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. This wasn't just some fleeting on-set flirtation. The relationship between Cindy and Michael actually developed gradually. As the show's makeup artist, Cindy was responsible for helping the cast look their best. And that meant spending a lot of time with the star of the show. Chats during makeup sessions, shared laughs, the occasional friendly gesture. It's good to get along with colleagues, you know. It makes the day that much easier to get through. But as time went on, those casual interactions turned into something more, something deeper. And I know what you're gonna say. Hey Nick, we've seen this before. Landon was grappling with the pressures of his career, and wouldn't you know it?
If he's changed at all?
We'll tell you everything.
This time he found Cindy, who understood the demands of his world, on that particular set, at this new level of fame and pressure. She was there during long hours on set, witnessing firsthand the challenges he faced as both a performer and a producer, at a level he didn't touch with on Bonanza. And it wasn't long before their connection blossomed into a full-blown affair. Of course, this was no ordinary office romance. As Landon's feelings for Cindy deepened, it became increasingly difficult for him to maintain the facade of a happy marriage with Lynn. All the while, the age difference between Cindy and Michael, a gap of nearly 20 years, raised more than a few eyebrows on set. And by the early 1980s, the affair was an open secret at the Little House set.
You find people that are abrasive are people who are panicky.
Turning back to Cheryl Landon's book, quote, "The tension between Michael and Lynn was palpable, and it was clear to those around them that his marriage was in trouble. You know, that thing he swore to uphold and treasure and all that. It was painful for Cheryl to watch her father struggle with his emotions, torn between his love for his family and his feelings for Cindy. But by 1981, Landon and Lynn No separated, and their divorce was finalized in '82. The tabloids had a field day with the news, painting Landon as the quintessential family man turned scoundrel. After all, how could Charles Ingalls, America's favorite dad, cheat on his wife? The press had a field day with their family man running away with the young hot secretary narrative. However crushed his fans were, his younger co-stars were certainly more heartbroken. Melissa Gilbert was his TV daughter, but he became a father figure when her adoptive father passed away. This affair basically blew a giant trench in their relationship that was so valuable to Melissa growing up. Those affected stretched out farther than just his immediate family. But folks, this is where things get even juicier. Let's turn to the book, Michael Landon, His Triumph and Tragedy, written by Aileen Joyce. According to this enlightening read, link in the description, Landon didn't just end his marriage quietly. Oh no, he did it in true Hollywood fashion, by marrying Cindy Clerico just 1 year after his divorce from Marjorie Lynn No. Now, to be sure, divorces in Hollywood aren't exactly rare, but this one was different. Because this was Michael Landon. This was a second Christmas for the tabloids, and Landon's squeaky clean image, well, it shattered to pieces. Part 4, The Aftermath, Fallout and Legacy. Now, you might be thinking, surely this scandal destroyed Landon's career. But here's the thing about Michael Landon, he was as resilient as they come. While the affair and subsequent divorce certainly tarnished his public image, Landon managed to maintain his career, and even continued working on Little House on the Prairie until its end in 1983. The show wrapped up its 9-season run with a bang, literally, as Landon wrote and directed the final episode where the townspeople blow up Walnut Grove. Was it a metaphor for his personal life? Who's to say? But of course the shadow of the affair never fully left Landon's legacy. In Prairie Tale, a memoir, Melissa Gilbert shares her perspective on the entire scandal, recalling the tension that it created on the set and how it affected her relationship with Michael. Gilbert, who was just a teenager at the time, struggled to reconcile with the man that she knew with the man from the headlines. But while the media focused on the scandal, Cindy and Michael focused on building their life together. The couple married in 1983, just a year after his divorce from Lynn was finalized. Despite the public backlash, Michael and Cindy's marriage would prove to be one of the great love stories of Landon's life. They went on to have 2 children together, Jennifer and Sean, and by all accounts, Landon was deeply devoted to his new family. But did he finally break his own toxic cycle? First, let's take a moment to think about what Cindy must have gone through. Here she was, thrust into the limelight not by choice but by circumstance. She went from being a behind-the-scenes makeup artist to one of the most talked about women in America, almost overnight. Yeah, that's a lot for anyone to handle, let alone someone in their early 20s, who presumably did not ask for any of this. But of course, Cindy wasn't just a passive player in the drama. And for all she had to put up with, she did stand by Michael through thick and thin, even as the public turned on him. In interviews, Cindy talked about the love and respect she and Michael shared, describing him as a man who was always honest about his feelings and who made her feel truly valued. Despite the scandalous beginnings of their relationship, Cindy and Michael managed to create a loving and stable home as well, which lasted until Michael's passing from pancreatic cancer in 1991. To circle back to our question from earlier, Cindy's presence in Michael's life wasn't just a footnote, it was transformative. After their marriage, Landon's work took on a more personal and very introspective tone, reflecting on his own life experiences. His next major project, Highway to Heaven, the show which Landon created, starred in, and produced, was deeply spiritual, exploring themes of redemption, forgiveness, and love. Many believe that Landon's relationship with Cindy and the personal growth that came from their love influenced the themes of the show. And if you personally loved Highway to Heaven, let us know down below. According to Melissa Gilbert in Prairie Tale, a Memoir, Cindy's influence on Michael was evident to everyone who knew the pair. Gilbert recalls how Michael seemed happier and more at peace in the years after marrying Cindy, despite the challenges they faced. Cindy became not just Michael's wife, but also his confidant and partner in all aspects of life. Cindy's life after Michael's death has been one of quiet dignity. She's dedicated herself to preserving Landon's legacy, raising their children, and working on charitable causes. Despite the unseemly start to their relationship, Cindy has always spoken of Michael with deep love and respect, ensuring that his memory is honored in the best possible way. So, as we wrap up our story, what can we say about Cindy Clerico, the woman who became Cindy Landon? Was she a homewrecker, as some tabloids would have you to believe? Or was she simply a woman who found love in a very unexpected place, at work? I think it's fair to say, and is usually the case, that the truth is a bit more nuanced and way more human. Part 5, A Love Story Revisited. Cindy and Michael's relationship was complicated, no doubt, but it was also real, it was genuine, and it was lasting. Despite the scandal, despite the judgment, they found something in each other that made all the noise just fade away. And in the end, isn't that all what we want? To find someone who loves us, flaws and all, and to build a life with them, no matter how rocky that road might be. So, hey, here's to Cindy Landon, a woman who, like everyone else, found herself caught in the whirlwind of life and love, but managed to navigate it with grace. Her story, intertwined with Michael's, is a testament to the complexities of the human heart and the unpredictable nature of life, on and off the prairie. So, what do we make of all this? Was Michael Landon a flawed hero, a victim of his own success, or just a man trying to navigate the complexities of life under the spotlight? Well, honestly, I think it might be a bit of all three. One thing is for sure, Michael Landon was human. He made mistakes, some bigger than others, and all those mistakes played out on a very public stage. But despite the scandal, or even maybe because of it,
I know, I feel the same way. I think everybody does.
Landon remains a very fascinating figure. His life was a mix of triumph and tragedy, of public adoration and private turmoil. And in the end, perhaps Landon's story is a reminder that even our heroes are just people. They're complicated, they're imperfect, and sometimes they are downright messy. But isn't that what makes their stories worth telling? And there you have it, folks. A tale of love, loss, and more than a little mischief on the prairie. We hope you enjoyed this journey into the life of Michael Landon, a man who, despite it all, remains an enduring icon of TV history. He was our idol, and he was incredibly flawed. And maybe that's part of what makes him such an enduring icon to this day. So now we need to hear from you. What are your thoughts on Michael Landon? Did you watch him growing up on Bonanza or Little House? Did you know all of this about his personal life? Does it change how you see him on TV? Get down below and tell us any memories about Michael Landon. Did anyone get to meet him? Tell us, we want to know. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps the video circulate. Subscribe to the channel so you don't get left behind. But most importantly, from my entire team here at Do You Remember, thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful little day.